Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Okay, so we are continuing the opinel experiment. We still got to figure out what to call it. The opinel experiment? You know, that'll probably work. It's just as good as anything else, right? Okay, so we got our two identical opinels and our one that's slightly larger than the other ones. I think this is video, let's see, the first video we unenveloped them and kind of described what we were going to do. The second video, I measured the geometry of the blades, wrote those down, and then sharpened all three of them. One with a 325 grit DMT diamond edge with micro bevels, one with a 6,000 grit King Waterstone edge with the Murray-Carter method, where you establish your edge, and then you stone strop, and then you rip the burr off in softwood, and then you stone strop a couple of more times. And then the slightly larger one, we went with the Murray-Carter style 6,000 grit edge, and then stropped it on chromium oxide, which is, last I heard, about 30,000 grit, and then shaved with all three of them. Well, took hair off my arm. I didn't shave my face. And then the last video, I think number 3, we took a look at all the edges underneath the microscope, and kind of explained a little bit of the differences that you could see just by looking at the edge and the scratch pattern underneath the microscope, and we kind of made some assumptions as to how they're going to cut. This video right here, one of the last things that I didn't do was I said that I could measure the thickness of the blade right at the shoulder of the edge after I got done putting an edge on them, because they were full, they were a full convex grind, a zero grind. So I mean, there's not really any shoulder to measure when you have a convex grind and a convex edge. So now that I got that done, the 325 grit edge, it is 4/1000 of an inch at the shoulder of the edge. That's where your sharpening marks end and your blade finish marks start. The 6,000 grit edge was the same at 4/1000. And then the 3,000 grit edge, it was at 6 to 8,000 or so. And that one's a little bit on the tough side also, because remember, we stropped that, and that kind of has a tendency to convex or round off your edge, and so it's a little bit tough to measure there. And those are just eyeball, lining up the edge of the micrometer anvil and ram on the, as close as I can see to the sharpening marks using a pair of reader glasses. Okay, so our next thing is we need to compare these three blades. I haven't touched, the only thing that these blades have touched since I sharpened them is, if they can contact the inside of the handle, which I don't know if they can or not. So we have got some of our manilla rope. Remember, this is manilla rope, not sisal rope. Manilla rope is for actually working and doing rope things. Sisal rope is for impressing people with the number of cuts in Blade magazine. So, that's actually only half of a joke. Manilla rope is actually good, tough rope. Sisal rope is, I don't know, decorative maybe. Okay, so this is our 325 grit edge. We're going to open up the blade. We're going to lock it. Remember the, you can't see. Okay, we got the bathroom scale. We got the piece of soft pine on top of the bathroom scale to use as a cutting board. We've got our manilla rope. The weight of the board, the rope, and my hand to steady out the rope is usually 4 to 5 pounds-ish or so, okay? Which means that any more force that, we see that dial move, that's going to be the amount of force to make the cut. This is a 325 grit diamond edge now, so this is, the 325 grit on your diamond stones, those are typically labeled as coarse. On your silicon carbide stones, a 300 to a 400 grit is labeled as fine. So it kind of depends on who you talk to. this is my absolute favorite edge, you know, so I have a feeling it's going to do really well. So we're going to start off at 4 to 5 pounds there. Put the blade on that section right there. We're at 12 to 13 pounds for the first cut. And it is, I don't know that you guys can appreciate that. Can you see that? I think you can see that. Listen to this sound. Music to my ears. What was that, 20 cuts or so? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and you know, let's do 100 cuts. 100 cuts really shouldn't take all that long. So that was 20-ish, and that's actually count. So there's 50. Let's count the 51. Let's see, the first one was 12 pounds, so that means it took about 8 pounds of force, right? So if it takes me 4 to 5 pounds to hold everything in place, and that scale goes up to 12 to 13 pounds, then that means 12 pounds minus 4 pounds is roughly 8 pounds of force to make the cut, okay? The first cut. So now we'll measure that same, we'll pay attention on the 51st cut, and then we'll log that into our logbook here. Okay, so there's roughly my 4 to 5 pounds. 12, 13-ish, 14-ish. Do it again. So about 14. So we'll do 14. Okay, now we'll do 50 more cuts, or 47 more cuts. Let's see, so that's 50, 52, 53. Okay, now this is the 100th cut right here. So about our 4 pounds or so, about 16 pounds, okay? So 100th is 16 pounds. Okay, so that gives us a pretty good baseline. Now what we'll do is, you know, we'll go ahead and do the same thing with these other two blades. And then we'll look at them up underneath the microscope and see what we see. We'll just do 100 cuts on each one. Okay, so this is the 6000 grit edge. Get everything cleaned out over here. Make our lock. Okay, so this is the edge that really surprised me when I started carrying it. I thought I was going to hate it, and I actually found that I kind of like it for a lot of things. So, but I've never done a rope. This is my first ever rope cutting test with a 6000 grit edge of any kind, really. There's my 4 pounds. 15. 14. 15. So that's 3 cuts was 15 minus 5, so 10 pounds. Which would make sense, because remember what we saw up underneath the microscope was that the teeth on a 6000 grit edge are quite a bit finer than a 325 grit edge. So you're getting much less sawing ability because the teeth are much smaller. It'd be like taking the 325 would be like taking a hacksaw with, 10 teeth per inch versus a hacksaw with 24 teeth per inch. The 10 teeth per inch, you're going to cut, 2x4s, PVC, soft metals like brass, aluminum, things like that. Much, much faster and much, much more aggressive than a 24 tooth per inch blade would. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do another 50 cuts or so. So this should be 4, 5. Oh, you guys are going to want to hear this. What is this? 8. Quite a bit quieter than the last one. What was that? 18, I think, or 20? Okay, that's 49, so this is 50. There's my 4 pounds or so. Now we're up around 20, 21. Do it again. 22. 22. So we'll call that 22 for 50 cuts, which is 8 pounds more. Now the 325 grit edge, we had 14 pounds of force at our 50th cut. This 6,000 grit edge, we have 50 pounds, or no, 22 pounds of force for our 50th cut. We'll put you back up here. So now we need to make 50 more cuts. So 53, 54, 55. Starting to have to put quite a bit more force. I think that was 70, and this round handle is starting to turn in my hand. '95, '96, '97, '98, '99. Okay, so the 100th cut is going to be, there's our 4 to 5 pounds, 26, 25, 24. So we can go, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt and give it a 24. Okay, so I think what is happening with the 6K edge is, since it's so the manilla rope has got some abrasive power. Okay, I mean, if it didn't abrade the edge, it wouldn't dull the edge, right? I think the 325 grit, the teeth are aggressive enough that while the rope is abrading them, it's not abrading them significantly. Okay, the 6,000 grit edge, I think what we're going to see when we put it up underneath the microscope is that that rope is starting to wear the teeth away much, much faster, and it's turning it into a polished edge. Okay, I think we're going to see a lot of the scratch pattern is wiped out, and you know, the teeth are completely gone on this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that one up. Now, the really interesting one here is going to be this stropped one, because when you get a couple of guys that got nothing else better to do, and you know, they want to talk about how great of a sharpener they are, they'll spend a whole bunch of time making this edge that's just as pretty as can be and just as shiny, and you can hold it up like that and you can see newspaper print and all that kind of stuff, and they talk about whittling hairs and all that, right? Well, you saw how this one just pops them hairs right off my arm, right? Tons and tons of hair all over the place. Let's see what this does on rope. Okay, there's our 4 pounds. 18. 17. 15. 16. So number 1, let's give it the benefit of the doubt at 16 pounds. Okay, that is 6 pounds more force to require the cut than the 6,000 grit edge, and it is twice the amount of force as the 325 grit edge to complete the cut. All right, so you're going to want to hear this. Okay, so that was what, 4? All right, there at 20, it really started slowing down. $45. Okay, that's 49. Let's go, this is 50. So there's our 5 pounds of pressure. 23. 22. 22. 50th cut is 22 pounds, which is the same as the 6,000 grit. So let's go ahead and do 50 more cuts. That's starting to get a whole lot harder, and that round handle is really starting to get to me. And this bottom of this fishtail looking thing's kind of weird. What was that, 80? Okay, that's 99. Let's go our 100th. 23. 22. 23. 23. Okay, so rope is really favoring the toothier edges. Oh, wait. Okay, somebody's going to ask. So let's do a straight push cut. Okay, as in we put that, the knife on the rope, and we push down until it separates. Okay. Let's go ahead and, so this part right here of the edge is what we were using to just do the cutting. Let's do it up here around just right in front of the belly. That way it's a fresh section of edge. So right about there. $35. 38, 35. So there's 35 for a push cut. Okay, so now we'll put that blade away. Now the 6000 grit. My goodness. 38. That is kind of a tough cut to do. I mean, I don't usually use a knife like that. Let's go on the edge here so there's clearance for my fingers. $50. 50. About 50-ish or so. I'm not too sure how much we can put on that because, like I said, that's not a cut that I would typically normally make, so I should probably practice that and then we can try it. Okay, the 325 grit edge, about 50. About 53. About 53. 53-ish, and didn't make it all the way through it on that one. Let's double, since both of these were at 50-ish, let's try that stropped one more time, just to make sure that that wasn't a fluke. No, 35 is where it starts cutting. 45 maybe. Aha. Okay, so it's really helping out on the sections of that rope that are tighter, you know, tighter wound. Once it kind of starts getting frayed out, it's a little bit tougher to cut. But then it's going 45-ish, 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 yeah. So let's go 45. 35 and 45. Okay, so we're at 22 minutes. That's enough time right quick, right? Where are my buttons? Alright, we gotta change mounts here. Turn the camera on. Get that doohickey. Okay, so this is a 325 grit. Okay. Now, see how our scratch pattern from our sharpening stone, you know, our sharpening strokes, they are quite a bit, you know, they're kind of washed out a little bit, okay? So that rope is, you know, smoothing out that edge, you know, as it passes, you know, as the blade passes through the rope, it's smoothing this out. But you can still see that these teeth are still alive and they're still working. You know, they're not near as nice as fresh, but remember, each one of these edges already did 100 cuts, okay, which honestly for a production knife, you know, is really dang good. I mean, really good. I mean, and that 325 grit edge, I mean, it was still working. You know, I would expect at least another 100 cuts out of that edge before it really started getting, you know, before it really started wearing out. So anyway, that's our 325. Actually, you can, okay, because we only used a portion of the edge. So that is the portion. Come on. So that's the portion that we used. Compare that up here in the belly, where you can see our scratch pattern is still, you know, quite a bit nicer, and we've got a whole lot more tooth going on. Maybe up even into the point section where we didn't touch anything. Yep, see how these teeth are really nice and sharp? They've still got all their points, and the grooves are all still nice and sharp also. So now let's look at our 6,000 grit edge. Okay, that's our heel, so we were probably in this area right here. Okay, see how now all of a sudden we're starting to get that bright line right there? That's, remember, we got that when we were looking at the stropped edge, because that section is now getting polished to the point where it's reflecting light really brightly back at us. There are some teeth here, and they're still we still have some teeth, and they're still working, but they're not working near like they were when they were new, which is to be expected. Now this is up in the area where we were doing the push cutting. When you're doing that push cutting, you have to push so hard to get the thing to cut that you can sometimes bend your edge over or chip it out also. So let's come up into the tip. So that is what our edge looked like to start with. So that versus go back 30 seconds or so, or 2 minutes, and find out what it looked like, and you can kind of compare the amount of wear. All right, now when our batteries are all running down, okay, this is our polished edge, or our stropped edge. Now see how it's really, really shining now? And you can also see how there's parts of the edges that are kind of dented in and kind of mangled up. That's because, like I just said, when you have to push that hard to get your edge to go in there, what happens is you start putting a whole lot more force on your edge, and it starts deforming your edge, and it accelerates the wear. Okay? It's, well, I mean, that's about the best correlation. Well, I mean, I don't really have a sort of like for you at the moment. That's just what happens. And the duller and duller it gets, the more and more force you have to put behind it, and the more and more edge damage you get from each and every single cut. You'll actually get pretty good damage. I mean, nothing that can't be fixed with a sharpening stone in 2 or 3 minutes, just by putting more and more force in there. So now let's go back up to the push cut area. Oh. Now, is that a, no, that's not a metal flake, that's just a piece of trash. Okay, so we're up in here in the area where we're farther up than I thought. But that's what the edge looked like before we started. And this is the area here where we were the end of the pull cutting and the start of the push cutting. And it's, you know, up there we didn't hardly, I think we only did like 5 cuts or so, so not really a whole lot of difference. So then we can go up to the point where it's fresh. And there you get that completely smooth edge that we started off with. So, the big takeaways is on rope. If you're going to be cutting rope, a coarser edge, or rope typically, a coarser edge or a more aggressive edge typically works a little bit better on rope than a polished edge. You get much greater slicing ability because each one of those teeth is, you know, much larger, and so it acts more like a serrated blade. And so you get your cut, you have to put much less force behind the cut to complete the cut. What that does is it allows the teeth in the edge to work, and you don't put so much force on those teeth that you start breaking them off or start wearing them down like you will with a 6000 grit, or especially a stropped or a polished edge. Okay, you saw that polished edge. I mean, it was the first cut on that polished edge was 16 pounds of force, which is twice what you know, the 325 grit edge was. By 50 cuts, you had 22 pounds of force to complete each cut. Honestly, I think at that point the edge had already quit working, and you're just shearing through stuff. You're not even really cutting it, you're just kind of mashing it apart. The push cuts, you know, at 50 pounds a piece, pretty much across the board except for the stropped edge, you know, which was a little bit less. That, you know, we'll include them, but honestly I don't really push cut a whole lot, so I don't have a good frame of reference on that either, but we'll include them just because we did it. Okay, so on the next one, I'll probably go ahead and sharpen these blades up, you know, put fresh edges, you know, the 3 different edges on them, and then we'll try to think of something fun. You know, rope cutting, to me, if an edge works good in rope, this good manilla rope, then pretty much it's going to cut really good what I typically cut. Opening boxes, cutting rope, you know, cutting leather, cardboard, whittling wood, you know, all that sort of stuff, which typically favors that more aggressive edge, which is why I like it so much. Yeah, so I guess that's it. I'll go ahead and sharpen these knives up and start thinking about the next video. Again, if you guys have got any ideas for, you know, cut comparison testing, now would be the time to drop those into the comments, and we'll see if we can't get them included. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.